Hi, everyone. This is Jordan Ramirez, and you are tuning in for a brand new episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. And here with me today to talk about himself, we have our special guest, Jesse Jackson. So, Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jordan. I am thrilled to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite films.
Oh, that's good. Before we get into the episode, could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, my name is Jesse Jackson. I'm not the guy that ran for president. Yeah, I'm a podcaster from the Dallas, Texas area. I have been in Texas since 1986.
hmm
So I'm not quite a native Texan, but I've been here a while. I do
hmm
a podcast all about called Set Lusting Bruce, which is all about the power and the magic of music and music fandom.
hmm
I've done over 1,400 episodes and I'm going on 10 years.
mm
I also do a podcast on John Hyatt, which is a singer-songwriter that not as many people know as Bruce Springsteen,
mm
but we're going through every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. And
hmm
then, kind of in your neighborhood, I do JKL Media, which
mm
is where two friends of mine, Lou and Karen, and I talk pop culture. And we've talked Stagecoach, we've talked about 12 Angry Men, we did Babylon 5, and we're currently doing The Haunting of Hill House. And
Awesome.
last but not least, I do a Doctor Who podcast.
Awesome.
So there you
Yes.
go, Jordan.
Yes. Thank you so much. Now, the film that he has picked it, and he originally selected three movies. One was Casablanca, the other is The American President, which I had seen before. But the film that I picked, or that we picked for this episode, is The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder, written by Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond, starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray. So, of the three movies that you picked, why of the three movies that you selected, what is so particularly interesting about this movie, from the three movies that you picked?
So the Apartment is a movie that I think really strong film buffs know, but I think the casual movie viewer probably has not watched this.
Mm,
It is in black and white, even though it was came out in 1960.
hmm
It is actually, for its time, pretty risque.
hmm
It pushes it very much, and it is just a. I am a huge lover of Hallmark movies, Hallmark, TV movies,
hmm
and this is an adult rom-com that, yeah, I just think the dialogue is good, the story is good, and the performances from all three leading actors, and including the supporting actors, are amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So you mentioned that you had done a pop culture podcast, and you also wanted to discuss about music and movies. So, do you find anything particularly interesting about the score in this film, that sort of like in the background that resonates with the characters and the story in general?
Yeah, I think it's a really great score that helps to build the tension. There are scenes where, like toward the end of the film, where Shirley MacLaine is running to meet the Jack Lemmon character, and there's this intensity of the music,
Mm-hmm.
and and it also the the soundtrack when he's going to, and for those of you, I hope everyone's seen it, but the premise is it is this huge insurance company in New York, and it is a stereotypical, just a floor filled with adding machines and people at desks. And, there's not even cubicle walls. They're just there. And that music kind of tells you that these are all busy bees. They're
hmm
just cogs in the wheel. And it's
hmm
pretty interesting. Yeah.
It is, and I love that you mentioned that this was a risque film. So, for those who are not historic or like film buffs or maybe film history buffs, this film pretty much came at the time that the production code was already weakening, and the movie ratings board would not be introduced until 1968. So by this time, it was becoming a shell of its former self, and movies that were of the past uh, topics like these, extramarital affairs, or even topics of how uh, there's a moment where Fran Kubelik tries to overdose on sleeping pills. That was starting to fracture by this point, and this was pretty much the leg. This was pretty much like the last legs of the production code before the rating system came into view, and also that the influence of of what the production code originally stood for. It was like the mores of what it was supposed to stand for. Like it was supposed to be a guard dog, a watchdog. But by 1960, when this movie came out, it was pretty much just becoming like a shell of its former self. It was starting to weaken. New movies were starting to be taboo. They were trying to push the boundaries, as you mentioned, and the code wouldn't be abolished until 1968 with what we now have, the motion picture ratings system that we use today, which I think is pretty much why this film felt like it was pretty much at the dawn of the era when the old studio system was just about to crumble and the new studio system that is in Hollywood today was just about to come in. So I think that's just why I thought it would be pretty interesting to give it some historical context.
No, I really appreciate it. I was not aware of that. I did read a little bit on this that when Billy Wilder wanted to do this earlier,
Hmm.
he had to wait. And if you Billy Wilder also did Some Like It Hot,
Hmm.
which was, a film all about men dressed in drag, which
Yes.
was, it is crazy
Hmm.
how, that he he is a very talented writer, a very talented director,
Hmm.
and I really recommend your listeners, if they have not taken time for The Apartment, stop, go watch the film, and then come back because you will love this 2 hours.
He it is. I will recommend this as well. But I do want to mention on some of the cast members in this movie. Jack Lemmon, this was like just after, as you mentioned, he was in Some Like It Hot. His stardom was just on the rise. He previously did supporting roles, and that movie and this movie and the others that came after it, he was just on the way to leading actor status. And in this movie, he plays an everyman, and this is why I think it does work with him as the lead because he does play an everyman character. He's not like a handsome big movie star with a big name or any of the other actors that if they put them in this role, it wouldn't work. But with Jack Lemmon, it does work. And the same with Shirley MacLaine, because Shirley MacLaine, she was starting out as a supporting actor, and her stardom was also on the rise as well. So I liked that the chemistry for both of these actors, even with the scenes that they performed together, or maybe with other actors, I thought it was really well received. And of course, Fred MacMurray, he was sort of an old pro by the time this movie came out. By the time he was making this movie, he was signing a picture with Walt Disney Productions. He was known as the Mr. Dad, the father figure in Shaggy Dog, The Absent-Minded Professor. And at the same time he did this movie, he was in My Three Sons. So, and also that this was sort of a reunion for both Fred MacMurray and Billy Wilder because they both worked on Double Indemnity together back in 1944. So it's pretty interesting to see him in this movie as well.
Yeah, and that's another great movie that where he plays the heavy,
Hmm.
which, but most of us know Fred MacMurray from, you know, My Three Sons and the Walt Disney movies,
Hmm.
and he plays pretty much a cad, using an old term, right?
Yeah.
In this film. I mean,
Mm.
you're like, God, this guy is just not very nice.
No. It's a pretty interesting role, and he does play sort of a father figure, but it's almost like he was cast against type performance, which I thought was pretty interesting as he plays this role. But I also liked that as you mentioned, it does have a number of supporting character actors. Like there's Dr. Dreyfus, played by Jack Crucian, or there's the other men who occupy the insurance company who use his apartment because he's loaning out to them. They're very interesting in this movie as well. But I just think it's a pretty interesting movie, not just for the leads in this film, but also for the character actors because they show off some of their gravitas in this film as well. But I just thought
Yeah,
it's
yeah, no, I agree. Sorry to interrupt you, Jordan, but yeah, like Ray Watson for my generation, and I look like I'm a little older than you, was my favorite Martian. Right?
yes.
Him and Bill Bixby on the after TV, after school, seeing him on TV, and
Hmm.
to see him, hey, buddy boy, and it was just very fascinating. Um, I think you're going to talk about in a minute, but this was nominated for 10 awards at the
Mm,
Oscars. So, and including a nomination not only for Lemmon MacLaine, but as you talked about, Jack Kirshner, who played the Doctor, was
mm,
nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Uh, None of them won,
hmm
but they did win Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay.
hmm
And yeah, I love the Doctor. And another thing that you asked why I love this film, other films might try to explain that, you know, Baxter, CC Baxter would try to explain that he's really not. There is the thought by the neighbor
hmm
that he is this horrible person, that he is a playboy.
hmm
And he doesn't try to change that. And as we talked about, when Mrs. Kubik tries to commit suicide, he takes all the blame
hmm
to protect her
hmm
and never goes and never explains anything. And I think in a modern film, they would make you do that, right? You would have
hmm
to have this coming to, oh, he's really not that bad of a guy. But this one, they didn't do it. And I just thought that was, as I rewatched the film this weekend, I went, wow, that's a bold choice. What do you
hmm
think about that, Jordan?
I do think it is a bold choice that he would take the blame because seeing Jack Lemmon, because earlier in the film, he was known to be bossed around by the guys who loaned his apartment. He was sort of a yes man. And to see him just all of a sudden change, tactics and all of a sudden, trying to, as Dr. Dreyfus told him, be a mensch. You know what that means? It
Yes.
means to be a human being. Now all of a sudden it's like he's now stepping up his game. He's now trying to have a spine because before he didn't. And yes, I do agree with you that he this is a bold choice for him to do it.
Yeah, and I also think that um, it like there is a very funny scene where Cece has a cold and
Hmm.
he just wants to go home and go to bed. We've all been
Yes.
there, right? We've all had
Yes.
that day where I
Hmm.
can't wait to take a couple of Advils or aspirin, he said, and just go to sleep.
Mm.
And because they had plans, he has to just do all kinds of like, okay, can you do it Thursday? How about, okay, can I get back to you? And, he does all kinds of scheduling, juggling
Hmm.
so that he can do that. And it's a very funny scene, I think.
It is. It's very funny because he's owing them all these favors for having to loan his apartment out to these
Yes.
guys just all to get a promotion at this insurance company that he works at. That's pretty much what he's been doing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that it's all through dialogue. He explains his backstory of how he was able to loan his apartment because the scene where he goes into Sheldrake's office and he's asking him why are you so popular? Why do I think that you should get the promotion? And then he asks him, how do you do it? How do you loan your apartment out? And he gives this story that he worked at accounting school and this guy he was trying to get find a place to put on his tuxedo and he loaned him his apartment and then all of a sudden he blabbed about it to the other guys, and then they decided to come over to his apartment, and that's where they had all their affairs with their mistresses, and they had these banquets and parties. And I think my favorite scene is when, as you mentioned, Ray Walston and his mistress, who he said looked like Marilyn Monroe, they were coming
Yeah.
into his apartment, and Dr. Dreyfus says, "Mildred, he's at it again."
You
Just
do a
at,
very good Dr. Dreyfus impersonation. I wanted to compliment you on that, Jordan.
oh,
That is
thank you.
greatness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I.
And I mean, and they complain because there's no cheese crackers.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of booze. I mean,
Yes.
they're like they there is no sense of gratitude whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And and then there is a point when he has to, because Sheldrick is above all of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? He pushes him to, okay, we're going to stop all this monkey business and just I'm going to be able to use the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other people turn on him as quickly as they can
Mm-hmm.
because what have you done for me lately, right? And
Yeah.
it was funny and at the same time very sad.
Yeah.
And now a message from Jordan Ramirez for Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez.
I want to take a break from this episode to thank my listeners/viewers who watch the videos on my YouTube channel and listen to each new episode on Spotify. While this show is a labor of love and passion that isn't about the movies that I like, this is also a show that is about the films that you like. Have a film that you want to recommend to the podcast? Make sure to recommend it in the comments section on YouTube and on Spotify, and you will receive a shout out in a future episode. Want to be a guest on the podcast? Click on the sign up form link in the episode description for further details. If you like this episode or my previous episodes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interviews in the near future. The goal for this channel is to reach up to 100 subscribers both on YouTube and on Spotify. It's just that easy. And now, back to our regularly scheduled episode. And it's interesting because Billy Wilder, not only was he a great comic director, but he also directed film noir. So it's a great blending of the two. Like you get moments where it's dark, and then you get moments where it's light. And it's a great contrast of these two because he knew how to balance both the dark and the light in this movie, not just in terms of the scene and the way he frames it, but also in the terms of the lighting, in terms of the score, and in terms of how the actors are framed, which I think is a pretty remarkable talent because he started out originally as a screenwriter before he said, I'm gonna direct and write my own movies because the other guys who directed movies from my screenplay, they didn't do it right, so I'm gonna do it right. And he
Yeah.
succeeded. And I think that's what makes him such a great director because he knows how to make a great choice. And he also knows how to find what makes the audience laugh because he also knows how to spot talent and he knows because he's immersed in American culture. He knows how to find ways that we as American audiences and moviegoers would laugh and react at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is 65 years old, right? If I've done the
Mm,
math right.
correct.
But it feels, and if you forget the idea of adding machines and the whole, somebody operating the elevator, but the rat race of you have to stagger shifts to make sure everyone else, you are just a body.
Hmm.
One of the most funny scenes I found, Jordan, and is the Christmas party, which is
Mm,
a different era. No
yes.
one does a Christmas party like this anymore,
No.
but it was hilarious that, and I don't even know in real life if people had Christmas parties like that,
Mm.
but booze was flowing, people were fooling around, they were
Hmm.
dancing on tables,
Mm.
and and Baxter is just trying to convince that Mrs. Kubik that she should pay attention to him.
Yes. Absolutely. Just when he is putting on his little bowler hat that he puts on his head from, I think it was from
Yes.
like a hat shop that he got it. And and I like that scene. I like those little scenes that he does. Sorry if my dog's barking in the background.
No,
Uh,
no, that's okay.
yeah. But yeah, I like the those little moments in the movie. Just with him and Shirley MacLaine as friend Kubelik, or just like moments where I think there's a scene in the film, if I remember correctly, where or but I want to go to some of the non-funny moments, like the moment
Okay.
uh well, just maybe one or two. I'll do a few.
Okay, please.
Yes, I won't do a lot. I'll just do a few. Okay. The scene when he when she's at the as you mentioned, the Christmas party, and Miss Olsen, his secretary, she's so drunk on booze. And this was just after Miss Kubelik was at the Chinese restaurant with Mr. Sheldrake, and he was giving him the story that he was going to divorce his wife and he was going to be with her. And then Miss Olsen, she blabbed that he did the same thing to the other girls at the other department, and he did the same thing, this whole divorcing his wife story, and he said he was going to leave his wife, but he never got the nerve to do it. And it basically tore her to pieces. Just after that, they were at Baxter's apartment, and she was crying because she wanted to confront him about this. And she gave him like a record, and all he gave her was like $100. Like, are
That
you?
is, Jordan, that is such a cut to the chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he hadn't even thought ahead
Mm-hmm.
of what he could do, right?
Yeah.
And now he had presents for all the his children and
Mm-hmm.
his wife, and he sits there and he pulls out and this is very modern, but she starts undressing
Mm-hmm.
and she says, "Well, since you paid for it,"
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes.
he's insulted. But
Yes.
that's the reality is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you've bought and paid for it. I'm going to give you your money's worth.
Mm.
And then when she says, "Don't make yourself cheap," and he goes, $100. I don't call that cheap at all.
No,
Shirley MacLaine is brilliant in this film.
she
Yeah.
is. I don't think any of I don't know if any other actor who would have played that part would have done it better than she had in the movie. And
No.
I feel that both of their performances, Lemmon and MacLaine, their performances are so believable. And
Yeah.
I also would have to compliment oh my goodness, there was a scene that I was gonna bring up. The moment there was like a scene where he's where Jack Lemmon is drunk at a bar on Christmas, and
Yeah.
Shirley MacLaine was with Mr. Sheldrake, and there's this almost like a call girl who was she's ripping off the paper plastic straws, and she's just doing this,
Yeah.
and he's like so drunk at the moment, and then she's like, "What do you feel about Castro?" What?
Yes.
Castro, the guy with the beard
With the
is down in
beard.
Cuba. The guy's a total thing, and it's so funny to see the him and I think this call girl type. And then
Yeah.
before they get inside the apartment, she's like, he's a 5'9", around 220 pounds, and he does these puppy law guys like a little chihuahua. It, I
Yeah. And yeah, it is so because they're both lonely,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's Christmas Eve, and so they're going to find solace. By the
Mm-hmm.
way, I just did a quick Google search. According to Mr. Google,
Mm-hmm.
that $100 in 2000 in 1960 is worth $1,080 in today's dollars.
Oh my God.
I had no idea that much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and he has to chase her off. And
Mm-hmm.
that again makes the doctor go, "Look, you've got one woman after another. She's coming in here." And, Baxter is, the doctor is trying to save her life.
Mm-hmm.
And, Fran, and I just, there is that funny scene, right, where she wants to brush her teeth. And so
Yes.
he takes everything that could possibly hurt her. And then
Yeah.
later, when he goes to shave, he realizes that the
Yeah.
razor blade he had taken out is in his shirt pocket. Just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little note there that's so beautiful.
It is. It's sort of like Billy Wilder has a very dark sense of humor, not just in his comedies, but also in his film noirs. He always has a dark sense of humor that he always inserts into his pictures, and he knows how to blend
Yeah.
both humor and dark subject matter very well, even if it's just small or tiny. Uh, and I also like the gin rummy scene. There were a few gin rummy
Yes.
scenes in the movie. And then my favorite was as Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon were playing gin rummy. Uh, she explains her backstory. Before she was working as an elevator operator, she was originally a typist, and she explained she was very bad. She had a bad luck with men, and she explained that. And there was a later scene where her brother-in-law, who's a cab driver, was worried
Yeah.
sick because they hadn't seen her for 2 days,
Yeah.
and the and originally she thought and the brother-in-law thought that Baxter was doing something to her, and it turned out to be like a misunderstanding between them.
Yeah.
The
In the middle of this farce, middle of this, dark, there's a little bit of a farce.
Yes.
Yeah, and and I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit and I apologize. But
Mm.
right, but like she talks about she's a great typist, lousy speller.
Yes.
And then when we get to the end,
Hmm.
that, you know, Cece realizes he loves her
Yes.
and he's going to tell his boss that Mr. Sheldrick, I love her, I'm taking her off. And Sheldrick's like, well, my wife's kicked me out, so I might as well enjoy some time with Fran.
Hmm.
And he says, I need the apartment.
Hmm.
And Cece makes the decision, no,
Hmm.
I'm not going to do that. And
Yes.
when they're at New Year's Eve
Hmm.
and they're at the restaurant and he's complaining about Baxter, and you
Yes.
see her face light up, and she'd
Yeah.
say, I'd spell it out for you, but I can't spell.
Yes.
And oh my goodness. I I don't know about you, but Jordan, but my heart soared when you realize what she's going to do.
Yes.
Please, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, because that's the moment where it sort of turns because you think that Shirley MacLaine was just going to continue this life. And then after Sheldrake said what you were mentioning earlier, that was the moment that she knew that that this guy, Baxter, was the right man for her because she said, I don't think I would ever see another guy like you, a nice guy like you again. But yeah, that's one of the brilliant turning points, and I think this may have been used in other romantic comedies where the girl who thinks she is with the right guy realizes she was with the right guy all this time, and I think this formula has been used in other romantic comedies. I just can't think of one at the moment.
Well, yeah, and it is a trope, but trope start.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, and I don't know if you've covered Some Like It Hot, but there's the line that ends "Nobody's perfect," which is
Yes.
one of the most famous closing lines of any film.
Yes.
This one has a similar close. And I love the idea that, Baxter is a little naive and
Yes.
he's been taken advantage of.
Hmm.
And Fran she has had, she's had experiences,
Yes.
right? She is a little more of the world.
Hmm.
And the scene where he is just giving his heart out to her
Yes.
and she just says, shut up and deal, is just right. It
Mm,
just is it it is such this beauty that you don't need to say all that.
mm-mm.
You've shown me that in your actions. And I hope I've shown you how I feel about you in my actions. And it's just beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's a very beautiful and it's a very lasting sequence. So in regards to the legacy of the movie, um, I mean, as you mentioned, it was nominated for, I think, 10 Oscars and it won for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. And I will say that even though the actors who were nominated did not win, I thought they still gave great performances, no matter even if they didn't win an Oscar at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Jack Lemmon did earn another Academy Award, but for another movie years after this. And Shirley MacLaine would
Mhm.
not win her Academy Award until I think in the early to mid 1980s decade when she did Terms of Endearment. But yeah, it's really impressive that even as you said, 65 years after this movie came out, it still feels fresh. Uh, I would recommend this movie to anybody who has not seen it because even if you have not seen early Billy Wilder films, later Billy Wilder films, as you mentioned with Some Like It Hot or Witness for the Prosecution, or another one, The 7 Year Itch, also with Marilyn Monroe. They're still pretty good too. They're pretty adult. They're pretty risque. They're not as they're not as like adult now as they were back then, but they're still pretty good movies to watch, even if it was of the time, but it still has some pretty good dialogue and pretty good storytelling that I like from both Billy Wilder and his collaborators.
Yeah, and to carry on a little bit, the United States Library of Congress deemed this culturally historic or significant.
Mm-hmm.
It was an AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies. It was number 93.
Mm-hmm.
AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs, number 20.
Mm-hmm.
BBC selected it as one of the 100 American greatest films. And it is truly considered one of the greatest films of all times. And what I thought was a little interesting is Sam Mendes, when he was filming American Beauty,
Mm-hmm.
actually said the apartment helped inspire him,
Mm.
which was really interesting,
It is.
I thought.
Yes, I think it's interesting. And I love the accolades that this film received, and its legacy did endure. And I would say that not only the stars, even though they may have aged and some are no longer with us, I think Shirley MacLaine is still with us. I don't know about any of the others, if they've passed on or if they've retired from acting at the moment.
I
Uh,
think Shirley MacLaine of all the cast is the only one I think still alive. And
mm-hmm,
if and I'm sure someone will correct us if we're wrong.
mm,
Um, and the other thing is, um, I've seen this movie multiple times, and each time I see it, I fall in love with it all over again.
mm,
And, one of the things, Jordan, that I find is there are certain classic movies that you watch and you go, okay, I understand why they call it a classic. I don't know if it's really good under modern standards, but I get why it's important. Then there's other classic films you go, you could put this against anything at all.
mm-hmm.
And it is, despite the dating, it would hold up to almost anything. And I think this is a movie that holds up to almost any film, it because it's that well.
It
Don't you
is.
think?
I do. I do believe I would say I believe you 100%. And I love that you mentioned that this was selected by the Library of Congress along with a few of his other movies, and they're great classics. They are great to watch. I don't think as you mentioned, they even though they may date themselves a little bit, it still feels timeless. It never feels like it aged poorly. It feels like it aged like a bottle of fresh wine, as I would call it.
I really think you are correct on that.
Hmm.
It is that, yeah, and I had a friend of mine who tweeted, I mentioned that I was doing this, and she said, you need to have cheese crackers while you're watching it. And she goes, in what world would Shirley MacLaine pick Fred MacMurray over Jack Lemmon? So yeah, I love this movie, and
Mm.
I just want to thank you so much. I know we're getting close to our end of our time, but
Yeah.
this was a great idea, Jordan. I love the fact that you took time to ask me to join you.
Hmm.
It gave me a chance to watch one of my favorite movies, and I hope I can come back again sometime.
Oh, splendid. That sounds fantastic. And if you do, I hope we cover the other two movies that you mentioned, Casablanca, and The American President, or any other of the other classics that you want to bring up. But thank you so much. And it's a really great film. Besides that movie and the ones we recommend that you were also wanting to select, were there any other recommendations or any other closing statements that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, first off, I'll let everyone know you can find me on X or Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. Jesse Jackson DFW. If you follow me there, you can find my other podcast. I will give a movie that was a couple years old, but I did not. I discovered Knox Goes Away with Michael Keaton.
Hmm.
And it was a movie that I watched it and was surprised how good it is. The
Hmm.
premise, and they tell you that right from the way, he is a hitman that has Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
and then stuff happens.
Oh, wow.
And it is an absolutely brilliant film that I really recommend if it's on streaming services. And if you're looking for a good modern film, Michael Keaton is brilliant in it. And Jack Al Pacino has a small part. So that's my recommendation for a modern film.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Jesse, for talking with us about this movie, and I hope that we will meet again very soon. And this is Jordan Ramirez, uh, closing off or signing off on Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, and you have been listening to our discussion of The Apartment, starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray, written by Billy Wilder and Izzy Diamond, or IAL Diamond, and directed by the classically talented Billy Wilder. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I hope that we will see you again soon. Okay. Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
That was so much fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So, all right. This is Jordan
Have a
Ramirez
good
signing
night.
off. Yes. Have a good night and have a good luck. And I'll see you at the movies and see you then.
Bye.